Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mailbox for the 20th of July 2012. My name is TotalBiscuit, bringing you your daily dose of community interaction, gaming discussion, and all that good stuff. You can email in mailbox@cynicalbrit.com. That's mailbox@cynicalbrit.com with topics for future shows. The game in the background is once again LOL. That's probably going to happen a bit. Don't worry, like over the next few days, chances are you're going to see a ton of B-roll from Guild Wars or something, so I guess that might work. And before you say a thing, I know I have too much cooldown reduction, and I know I don't have an Aegis. That was pretty dumb. It was my first time playing Soraka, and it looks like I pulled the wrong build off of Mobile Fire. My mistake, I'll check solo mid next time. First email comes in from Arkfall that says, after hearing of the Baldurs Gate Enhanced Edition, I've been more than a little excited. Baldur's Gate was my first real RPG for my computer, and I can't count the number of hours I've played that game, modded and unmodded. And there are still bits and pieces I haven't seen. While it's still the same game, the thought of a modernized version has my attention, and worst case scenario, I still have the old Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. Recently, Trent Oster tweeted that there were no plans to put Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition on either Steam or GOG, and from what I've been able to figure, he plans on having a launcher for Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition that will check for updates. In reaction to this, some people have come out to say that if the game is neither on Steam nor GOG, they will not buy the game and they will instead go out of their way to pirate it. Today, on July the 7th, Trent tweeted saying that the threats of piracy really kills his enthusiasm. Since this also happened, or at least was threatened, with the Dark Souls Prepare to Die edition, and it uses games for Windows Live, resulting in people stamping their feet and whining like petulant 2-year-olds, is this going to be a more consistent thing, with all games produced in the future having to adhere to the demands of the gamer? Or are we just looking at a few outliers amidst a sea of contrition? Valve fanboys are particularly bad. There's a real problem with the way that Valve does things, and the fact is that Valve uses a client. By having a client, that means you have something installed on your machine. Loads up every time that you log onto your computer. It's there. It pops up little things every time there's a sale. It has all your friends list integrated into it. It's actually kind of terrible when you think about it, because, while that sounds very beneficial, it also means that there's no way in a million years you're ever leaving Steam. I mean, come on. You've got hundreds of games on Steam. You're not going to bail on Steam. Even if you had only 2 games on Steam, you're not going to bail on Steam because that's where your games are. You can't get them off Steam. It's not possible to do, and it requires a client running in order to make that happen. So what this does is it actually causes a horrendous amount of irrationality amongst a lot of people. Indeed, I'd almost go as far as to say that there's some cognitive dissonance going on. I actually believe, for the most part, that there are some people that really resent the fact that all of their games are stuck on Steam. So what they do is, instead of blaming Valve, because Valve is of course the god of the glorious PC gaming master race, and there's no possibility that Valve could ever do any wrong, they blame everyone else that doesn't put their games on Steam. How dare you? How dare you? That's where all my games are. How dare you not release it on Steam? We'll ignore the fact, of course, that there might be a wide variety of reasons not to do that. Perhaps Steam and Valve charge too much. Perhaps they don't provide the kind of facilities that these guys want. Perhaps, and I know this sounds kind of crazy, perhaps the developers might actually want all the money from the game, as opposed to some of the money from the game. Maybe they have some kind of moral objection to the way that Steam is run. Maybe they just simply don't like the service, or there could be a billion other business reasons why. Now, of course, they are taking a hit in the process, because if games aren't on Steam, they're not going to sell as well. That's just a fact. Going out of your way to pirate a game that's not on Steam is just ridiculous. It is a sorry excuse for really just saying, herder, I want it for free. Because really, it's not like you can't add any game to Steam anyway. Sure, you can't re-download it from the Steam servers, but you could download it from one that works more often, like, I don't know, Gamersgate, or many other services that are similar to that. I've got to say, I've had more problems with Steam downloading than anything else, and it kind of makes sense, really, when you think about it. Steam is constantly busy. Every time there's a sale, I can't access half my games. The Steam servers are too busy to handle your requests. Like, the game is on my hard drive. Why can't I play it? This game is unavailable at this time. It's on my hard drive. No other service has ever done that to me, aside from, of course, Blizzard with Diablo 3. It's amazing, really, isn't it, that companies like Valve and Blizzard can actually get away with that kind of thing, because they built up so much consumer goodwill, and a lot of it seems to have come out of thin air. I can definitely understand people loving the Blizzard of 10 years ago, but loving the Blizzard now? I mean, really? Considering their business practices, I'm very surprised that people continue to stick around. Valve, for the most part, has done well by PC gamers. I think that perhaps people believe they owe Valve a lot. I think that Steam has strengthened the PC market significantly. And perhaps they believe that that deserves loyalty. I don't believe in loyalty to companies. I don't think that's a very good idea. I think companies should be judged on a case-by-case basis. I don't think just because a company's done a couple of good things for me in the past that I should be automatically loyal to them. Cool, you've done good things. That's what you're supposed to do. That's a bare minimum standard. This company didn't screw me over, so I'm loyal to them. Wow, yeah, that's great. They're not supposed to screw you over. It's another anti-Steam rant, isn't it? God, this keeps happening every time Steam comes up. I think it's just because of how utterly irrational people are when talking about Steam. It's just absurd. If it was any other service, there's no way in a million years they'd say that. I don't really believe that people are actually going out of their way to say, herder, I'll pirate it if it's not on GOG, really. I think the users of GOG are a little bit more reasonable than that. Steam users, on the other hand, God knows. Oh, it's not on Steam, therefore I can't buy it for 80% off and then feel really good about it. Bearing in mind I pirated it on day one. It's okay, I bought it on Steam for $1, so I'm not a pirate. Yeah, right, whatever. But that said, I wouldn't even get mad over these claims because I don't even think they're serious, honestly. It's just a bunch of guys blowing smoke over Twitter. Seriously, and any kind of piracy boycott, as I like to call it, should not be taken seriously either. That's not the way to get what you want from companies. Trying to hold them hostage is not the way to get what you want from companies. That's not a proper boycott. No one is going to take you seriously if you are the kind of person that's just going to download their game anyway. You're not even a customer at that point. You don't get a say. If you're willing to actually go out of your way to pirate a title, then as far as I'm concerned, your opinion is null and void. And for the most part, that's what companies seem to believe when it comes to video games. Publishers and developers don't listen to pirates. There's no reason to. Piracy is not a market force. Most people are not responsible when it comes to piracy. Most piracy is a result of wanting something for nothing. Not all of it, but most of it. So why even listen to a person that wants something for nothing? Why try and convince them not to pirate your video game? They're going to do it anyway. If anything, the decision not to put it on Steam is kind of dumb because less people are going to buy it. They just won't buy it because it just happens to not be on Steam. It kind of sucks, really. But it is the case. I mean, I've seen games that have come out before they've come on Steam, and there have been so few sales in comparison to the Steam release. Valve has this crazy, scary hold on the market. You know what gets me? What gets me is this blind support for Steam is actually, in the long run, going to hurt you as gamers. Why is it going to hurt you as gamers? Because the more you feed into a monopoly, the worse things get. If Steam gets a monopoly on the PC market, then they put themselves into a position where they have no real reason to do anything to keep you. Why? Because you're not going to leave them anyway. You've already got too many games on their client, and you can't get them off their client. You automatically become a customer at that point. You can't leave once you become a customer of Steam, you know? That's the point of these client-based services. Play a game on Steam, you're going to be logged into their servers. You're going to be constantly marketed to as you do it. You're going to be given sales. You're going to have your friends send you messages. It's inconvenient not to be on Steam. That's the system that's been set up. And my god, it's terrifying. I've got to say, for all the good Valve has done, they scare the crap out of me. They really do. Valve is like that mad scientist who eventually, after doing a load of good for the world, will create Frankenstein. And not the misunderstood kind of Frankenstein either. Oh no, the Frankenstein that's going to eat you and your babies. I think of all the things that Valve has done, and you can see a sinister edge to all of them, even though they're beneficial to the consumer, or at least they appear to be. If you were to look at, say, TF2, it's like, oh, they made TF2 free, they're so great. At the end of the day, TF2 was a loss leader for them for ages. They constantly updated that game because it got people to use their store. You have TF2, you can only play it on Steam. All right, you're using Steam now, we've got you. Our hooks are in you, you're going to buy more on Steam. The more you buy on Steam, the less likely you are to leave Steam, because that's where your games are. That's where your friends are. Now there's a situation where shooters have actually declined significantly, in my opinion, as a result of TF2. How the hell do you compete with TF2? It's very, very difficult to do so. Selling a shooter that isn't COD or Battlefield at the moment is really hard. Nigh on impossible, I might say, when it comes to multiplayer. Because the answer is, well, why don't I just play TF2? That's free. So either you have to go free-to-play, or you're just going to fail. I try to think of a shooter in multiplayer that's been successful since TF2's free-to-play release, that wasn't Battlefield or COD. And I can't think of one. Can you? I can't come up with one. Every other shooter that I've seen that actually required you to pay for the client has not been successful since that occurred. They pretty much all fell flat on their face. Now, one could say that that's because the games aren't good enough, but consider what you're competing with. A free game that is one of the best shooters ever made, and is constantly updated and well supported. That's actually terrifying. I can't think of a way to compete with that directly, unless you happen to already be a huge franchise. Now, you can make the argument that it's because games just weren't good enough. They're releasing shooters that cost money that aren't as good as TF2, but again, not a lot is as good as TF2. I mean, come on, really? How are you supposed to compete with that? Is that the fault of the developer? No, Valve is huge. It's monolithic. It has a huge amount of talent working for it. How do you make a better game? You don't. And as a result, shooters have gone free to play for the most part if they aren't already a large recognized brand, because what other way is there? At least if they're free, you can get people to play them. And then think about Dota 2. Now, Dota 2 has what you would perceive as one of the fairest consumer models you can possibly imagine. All the heroes are free. You don't have to earn them in any way. You don't buy them with real money. You don't buy them with in-game currency. They're all there. So everything is just cosmetics. It's cosmetics for players. It's hats. It's armor pieces. It's little things. And the game's free. How do you compete with that? I mean, hell, as far as I'm concerned, between Dota and League of Legends, that essentially spells the end of traditional MOBA-style games. I think you've got to go into different areas now in order to be successful in that particular genre. You've got to try from the third-person perspective, maybe in a first-person perspective. You can go with the kind of style which is more action-orientated, like Super Monday Night Combat is. But really, between something as large as LoL and something as free and fair as Dota 2, nothing will live. If I'm honest, I view Dota 2 once again as a loss leader for Valve. It's like you get yet more people onto your service. You can invest millions of dollars. It's essentially advertising. That's what TF2 was. Why do you think they constantly updated the game? It wasn't out of the goodness of their heart. It's because TF2 was the best form of advertising possible for Valve. Bear in mind that when Steam first started up, it was something that they forced you into. They forced you to use Steam in order to play their games, which was exactly the same as what EA did with Origin. Now, there was a similar outcry when Steam first came out, as there is to Origin now. It's vitally important for anyone that runs a digital platform to get people on it, to get an installed user base, because of the nature of it, especially when you have a client. There's a similar argument behind the free-to-play model as well. Like, League of Legends does this really well. Everyone said, oh, when Dota 2 comes out, League of Legends will die off, and I laughed at them. And you want to know why I laughed at them? It's not because LoL's a better game, it's because you've invested so much time and potentially money into your account that you don't want to leave it. Very similar to the way an MMO works. People feel that they can't really leave an MMO because of the amount of value that they perceive within their account. They've worked really hard for that. There's a lot of memories attached to it. It's sentimental. With Steam, it's actual real money value that they've got attached to that thing, with no way to extract it. If you want to protest against Valve, if you want to boycott Steam, you can't do it. It's not possible. Your games are on Steam, that's it. They're not coming off Steam at any point. There is the possibility that the whole business model for Valve with Dota 2 is simply a gesture of consumer goodwill. It's like, hey, we think that this is the fairest way to do it. And they may very well be right. But of course, they're doing things the fair way in such a way that also keeps people on their service. So there is always a different reason. There is always another motivation for that. I don't believe that Valve is inherently evil, but they also are destructive in the way that they do things. Maybe not intentionally, maybe they do it intentionally. Maybe the stuff is anti-competitive. They offer this stuff for free because no one else can compete with it. They know that there's no way there's going to be a free game with the quality of Dota 2. Nobody can afford to do that. Valve doesn't have to worry about keeping the lights on in the office. Valve makes money hand over fist by making no games at all. Every game Valve makes can essentially be treated as advertising for Steam. They can be a loss leader in everything. They could release Half-Life 3 for free. Every game they ever make, they could release for free. And they would still be making money hand over fist. And in fact, arguably in the long run, they'd make more money hand over fist. Dota 2 may very well be the way forward when it comes to the microtransaction model. It may very well be the fairest microtransaction model ever given to the consumer. But I have to ask this. If anyone other than Valve did it, would it be a success? I've got to say, I'm not thinking it would be. And I see no evidence up to this point. No evidence at all that a game can actually be successful, unless, of course, you happen to be Valve, based purely on cosmetic microtransactions. As much as I would love to believe otherwise, I really don't think that's possible. I would love to be proven wrong. Seriously, I would love to be. I would love to look at this in a really positive way and say, hey, what a victory for consumers. What a great thing this is. What an amazing model to follow. But I don't think that any other company could pull this off and still have the lights on in the studio by the end of the week. At the end of the day, game development is not a charity. It costs a lot of money to make video games, and there's a lot of very talented people that need to be able to put food on the table. That's the concern for an awful lot of companies. Valve doesn't have to worry about that. That's a nice position to be in. All I can say is, when we see this go live, it's going to be very interesting to see how things go. It's going to be very interesting to see the effect on the market, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't just a little bit scared. I am very curious, and also a little bit worried about how this is going to go down, and what kind of long-term effects it's going to have for the PC market, and whether or not it's actually going to hurt a lot of other third-party developers. We'll see how it turns out. Okay, folks, that's me done for the day. Thank you very much for watching the Mailbox. That's also me done for the week. I will be back on Monday, hopefully, with yet more Mailboxy goodness. I am going away again next week, midweek, in fact. I'm going over to San Francisco. I've got a couple of things that I need to do over there. I'll be bringing you content as a result. I also won't be gone for too long, so you shouldn't have to worry too much about that. And those asking, yes, I do have a couple more PlanetSide videos that need to be made over the next few days. I'll see you next time.